Wow, okay, Samsung just went full on like, who cares how much it is, put everything in! And I'm fine with that. I'm actually really excited to try out that S20 Ultra. I've already reserved one. I'm definitely gonna be pre-ordering it on the 21st, and then the S20 will officially be available on March 6th, in the United States at least. I don't care what y'all are doing in Europe. Y'all have different prices and currencies and stuff. I'm talking about the US for me. But in today's video, I just wanted to talk about all the things I'm excited for with the S20 Ultra, and man, it's never been harder to be an Apple sheep. That's not true. It's been harder in the past. Let's begin. Don't get me wrong, okay? I love my iPhone. I love my Apple Watch. I love this little ecosystem thing I got going here. But my goodness, did Samsung listen and pretty much deliver on every category they possibly could, except one where I feel like not that many people were asking for it, but I'll get to that later. So, I could just go into the raw specs for you today, but I'm just gonna instead highlight the S20 Ultra because that's the one that's the most interesting to me. For one, we got it. 8K video on the main lens. That's only on the S20 Ultra. If you want 8K video on the regular S20 and S20 Plus, those, you have to do it with the telephoto lens, which is 3x punched in. That's kind of weird. I'm confused as to why they only allow 8K video for the telephoto, but it makes sense. I get it. The megapixel sensors can't support 8K. It's just like, why have an 8K option at all at that point? I don't know. I guess if you care about 8K video on the telephoto lens, you can get it, but you can have it on the regular lens with the S20 Ultra, and that means I'm totally doing an 8K vlog as soon as I get this thing. I'll probably not do very many of them, but I at least want to do one vlog that's shot completely at 8K. That sounds kind of epic. I've never shot anything in 8K before. It's mostly unnecessary because very few people have 8K displays and very few people have internet that can even sustain an 8K connection, and a lot of people would have a hard time noticing the difference in the first place, but I don't care. 8K. They also prioritized 120 hertz. Thank you. I'm glad that ended up being real. Does come with a little bit of a catch though, sadly. So it's not going to be 120 hertz at the full Quad HD resolution these smartphones have. So the S20 Ultra has a massive 6.9 inch display that is of course well over 1080p, but out of the box, it is actually standard 1440p, locked at 60 hertz though. So you have to go into the settings and activate 120 hertz, and when you do that, it locks it at 1080p. Some may criticize it for that. I think that's perfectly fine. Most people can't tell the difference of 1080p or 1440p on a phone in the first place. 1080p is plenty, and 120 hertz, that's super noticeable. They've also updated the touch refresh rate to be 240 hertz. So when it comes to mobile gaming, which we all care a lot about with our exclusive Samsung Galaxy Fortnite skins, yeah, absolutely. That's gonna be awesome. I'm just mostly excited to have 120 hertz on a display with bezels that thin. And I was happy to see, as Marquez pointed out in his video, they seem to reduce the size of the curves off the edges, which I was happy to see them make because I always was annoyed by that. I didn't like how sharp the edges of the Samsung phones were. I didn't like the display rolling off so much. In fact, I wish they just went completely flat with them, but hey, they got a lot closer this year, and I'm happy about that. You're not gonna hear anybody bringing up the headphone jack being gone, because Apple took the blunt of that criticism, and now that we realize that was the way to go, we're just gonna shut up about it and go, you know what, yeah, we can all remove the jack. Obviously, I don't care, because I've lived without the headphone jack since long before the iPhone 7 even came out, but yeah, the S20 Ultra can support 45-watt ultra-fast wired charging, obviously, of course, with wireless charging as well, and yes, we were absolutely correct with the price points. The S20 Ultra does start at $1,400. The cheapest S20 starts at $1,000, and the S20 Plus is at $1,200, so definitely up there. But with what you're getting with these phones, I think anyone in the tech community can relate and say, yeah, there's no other phone out there with specs these insane, so I think it's reasonable. You know, they're high-priced phones, but they're not overpriced phones. There's not a phone that can do everything these phones can do and cheaper, so by all means, it's not overpriced, it's just high-end. It's just a high-quality smartphone. And let's also take a moment to talk about the Z Flip. Again, very stupidly named, and I don't know why they named it that, but it ended up being $20 cheaper than we thought. It starts at $1,380, which is pretty much $1,400 once you factor in tax and everything, but that's actually going to be available on Valentine's Day, which I think that means it's coming out sooner than the S20 is, which is kind of weird. And the most interesting factor of the Z Flip, I think, is the ultra-thin glass they're using. Apparently, this is not a plastic display, which I'm wondering what that means, it's ultra thin glass, which still allows to be bent back and forth, which to me means it has to be somewhat fragile, and we know that there's going to be a crease because Samsung mentioned in their Oscars commercial at the bottom corner, hey, this thing's going to have a crease on it, so that's normal. So it sounds like it's not plastic, but it's likely going to have the same detriments of plastic. So once we get some real world testing with this thing, we can figure out how much better that is than the plastic phones we've had, like the Motorola Razr flip phone, and of course the previous generation Galaxy Fold, which Samsung appears to, you know, kind of move away from that design for now. But the Z Flip has pretty average specifications. For one, that is not a 5G phone. For two, it's still not water or dust resistant, though they claim to have designed a hinge that's much more durable than before. It's supposed to keep out dust, so the hinge will not collect stuff over time. Just 2 cameras on the back of this one, which seems like not very many anymore, given we just had, you know, the insane cameras on the S20. But yeah, the Z Flip can just shoot regular 4K. It has an ultra wide and a regular lens, so no telephoto fun on this one. S20 Ultra, you can zoom in by 100 times, and the event demos did not demonstrate it very well. I think that the 100X is insanely far in and also doesn't look very detailed whenever they showcase it. Anyone who shows me the 100X zoom, it's like, yeah, I mean, you're zoomed in, but it looks like garbage, so I don't think anyone's gonna use it that much, but hey, you can do it. With the Z Flip, they tried to showcase that you can, you know, like prop the thing up for taking selfies and stuff like that. It's definitely in the gimmick territory for me. I think this is the best foldable yet. I still stand by all my claims that I've made with the Z Flip in the past. It's just, I don't think people are going to be willing to pay that much for a phone that just has a couple of nifty features like that. They even showcased it on stage. There doesn't appear to be a way to open it with one hand, which YouTubers have brought up with the Razr Flip. That's kind of annoying that every time you take it out of your pocket, you have to use both hands to unfold the thing, which is kind of this middle step we're not used to taking with our smartphones, and it doesn't look like there's a one-handed way to do it with the Z Flip. Maybe there is, but I'm very curious to see how the market is going to react to that one, and I will do my best to get my hands on one as well. That's as long as they're shipping the thing. They didn't ship it in the United States, but if they're shipping the Z Flip, then yeah, I'll get one. So overall, I know it would be very easy to go into the intricate tech specs of the thing, but you know what? You can look those up yourself. I want to talk about what Samsung did as a whole today, which is, I think, overall a good move. They saw what most people were criticizing them for in the past. The cameras have always been kind of an Achilles heel to the Galaxy lineup. People always want to choose the iPhone camera or the Pixel camera, but Samsung is known for nailing the displays and having rock-solid specs across the board, and they did that with the S20. Real-world tests may prove otherwise. Maybe having all these megapixels doesn't make that big a difference, but we'll see. I think it was very smart of them to go all in on the camera this year, because that appears to be the only thing that people differentiate the premium smartphones for anymore these days. So they are very expensive, yes, and the one thing that I mentioned earlier in this video that I feel like they didn't need to enforce on everybody was the 5G stuff. So the regular S20 and S20 Plus have sub-6 5G, which means that it's only about 20% faster than typical LTE, but then the S20 Ultra actually has millimeter wave 5G, so that's the stuff that can get you well over a gigabit, but 5G infrastructure is simply just not here, and if you want to have an option for 5G, I totally get it, and I know that the lineup was very distorted last year with the S10. You know, we had like 6 different phones to choose from, and they did simplify it this year by just having 5G models, and before you correct me, I'm well aware, in the UK and in Europe, you can get a version of the S20 without 5G, and it's just 4G, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to do that in the US. I have no idea why. It's not like we have a very expansive or very applicable 5G network. I mean, T-Mobile's is just as fast as Verizon's 4G, and what you use a smartphone for does not require gigabit, okay? So that's like the one thing I feel like probably boosted the price point of all these phones, and probably unnecessarily so. 90% of what we do on our phones are social media, texting people, occasional phone calls and video calls, and watching YouTube and gaming and all that stuff you can do just fine with LTE. I don't think you need 5G for that stuff, but Samsung wants to, you know, push that connectivity, and they work directly with companies like Verizon and T-Mobile on this kind of stuff, and I've done my whole rants on 5G in the past. You guys know my opinion of it, but outside of that, I feel like they nailed it. I think they did a really good job. There were some fluffy parts of the event, stuff that really didn't need to be there, but overall, it was still very impressive. I cannot wait to try out the cameras. I'm mostly interested in the video stuff, not so much the pictures. All smartphone pictures are fine these days. I feel like it's ridiculous to compare the slightly different colors and everything, but 8K video at 24 FPS is decent. You know, I'm used to shooting at 60, but to me, this is like the first legit 8K camera on a smartphone, because there's been other phone cameras that tried, but it's under 24, and that's like not even traditional video at that point. And I'm also a big fan of 120 hertz displays, so seeing that that's an option on there, I'll be turning it on right away. Curious how that's going to affect battery life, given these have between 4,000 and 5,000 milliamp hours across the lineup, which is decent, but depending on how they manage, you know, the Snapdragon 865, the high refresh rate, and probably when you're shooting 8K video, that's going to fill up storage really, really quickly. And I also found the storage options are somewhat limiting as well. So if you go with the $1,000 S20, you can only get it with 128 gigs. You can't get any other storage internally. You have to do everything else with microSD expansion. So they're kind of pushing you to go for that S20 Plus, which is an extra $200, and then you can get half a terabyte of storage, which is good, but again, quite a bit more expensive than that entry-level S20. And then, of course, it's still 128 gigs standard on that $1,400 S20 Ultra. So if you're trying to make the argument that basically if you consider the iPhone's higher prices for storage configurations, they're pretty much the same prices, right? No, they're not. Even the most expensive iPhone you can possibly get, which has half a terabyte of storage, is only a little bit more than the cheapest S20 Ultra. So once you start factoring in the half terabyte option with the S20 Ultra, yeah, Samsung is making more expensive phones, but those phones do a lot more, and they have insane specifications, so I think it's justified. And overall, I applaud Samsung for nailing the tech specs, because that's what they're good at, and I think while there's not going to be a lot of everyday consumers buying these things, the tech community will be very, very happy with these models and their hardware. It's just a shame they won't get that many years of support. But anyway, let me know what you guys think of the S20 lineup. Feel free to hit me up over on Twitter, join my Discord if you have questions or things you want me to try out once I get my hands on them. So thank you guys for watching. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.